And welcome once again to the Prepper Talk Radio Hour here. My name is Shane, here on K-Talk AM 630. K-Talk is my favorite news source. I mean, truly. We hear a lot of real truths. We hear a lot of lies through the regular media, and I choose to stay away from the mainstream media and listen to K-Talk as much as I possibly can. I hope you do as well. A lot of great shows on here. Today, of course, our sponsor, as usual, is Survival Medical, survival-medical.com, where they create first aid kits that will last 20 years or even possibly more. Now, John, are you there with us?
I am. How are you doing this morning, Shane?
I am good. A little nervous by myself in the studio once again. Scott is on vacation, and hope he and his wife are having a wonderful time in Hawaii. And
just print out a little picture of him and put it in his chair.
That's true. I should have done that. Put him across over here. Hey, Scott is with me, us here in spirit, and looking forward to his safe return. And when I think about traveling, and all the turmoil that's going on in the world, I am definitely a little bit concerned whenever I go anywhere, whenever family or friends go anywhere, and I'm always aware. I take extra things with me, and that's something I want to talk about in future shows. Is okay. What do you do to prepare yourself for traveling on a plane, traveling away from your home for a great distance? Especially when you go on a plane, you can't take particular things with you. But today, I kind of wanted to start out. Of course, first of all, welcome John as our guest today from Survival Medical. Now, you are currently in Sam's Club in Riverton. Is that correct?
Riverdale.
Riverdale,
yes.
Okay.
49 South, 900 West, Riverdale. We'll be there through Sunday night. That Sunday night, we'll pull down the products at Riverdale, and then we'll be in the South Jordan Sam's Club starting on the 20th, and the Provo Sam's Club starting on the 20th.
Oh, fantastic! Down my neck of the woods, down there. Excellent. Now, when will you be going out of state? Do you have plans for that yet with Sam's Club?
For the end of the year, we're pretty much hanging out in Utah and Idaho.
Oh, fantastic.
Possibly northern Arizona as well to the end of the year. Sams.com, you'll be able to find our products there in about 10 days.
Oh, fantastic.
But as far as the actual physical stores, not until January, to answer your question.
Okay. No, that's great. Well, I have a few different topics I'd like to talk with you about today, John, and our listeners. And I'm hoping that we'll get a lot of you to chime in, because the topic I want to talk about it's a big question mark in my mind. It really something I struggle with, but I know the answer in my mind. But I want to see your opinions, your thoughts. Of course, the number is 801-254-5855. But before we get into that topic, I'm going to throw it out there. The topic is, are things better or worse? And what I mean by that is...
Bum, bum, bum.
Exactly. I mean, it's a pretty broad topic there. What I mean by that is, as we go through our lives and we raise children and we improve our lives and knowledge increases in the world, the idea is that each generation after us does better than we do, both financially, both, in knowledge and whatever way, and that that's our goal as a parent. My goal as a parent, to create an environment, safe place for my kids, so that they have a better life than I had as I was growing up. Identifying the weaknesses and my parents' parenting that I would change and so forth. And the question is, are things better now or are they worse? But let me come back around to that. I wanted to first throw out and let you listeners kind of think about that, and want to talk about different topics from politics to geopolitics, to peace, tolerance, love, freedom, liberty, those types of topics. I want to say, okay, are things really better or are they worse? But what I want to throw out here is, first of all, we're only on once a week, and we're hoping to expand our show, to a couple hours here in the near future. However, I don't get the chance to talk to a lot of people about prepping. I mean, I really don't. And mainly because I think most people are interested in sports. They're interested in celebrities. They're interested in other crap like that. That when I hear that, I roll my eyes. So I imagine that many others roll their eyes when I start to talk about preparedness. Now, I've got a call coming down the line. Let's roll the dice and see what they have to say. Yes, what's your name?
Hello there.
Yes, who is
I'd
this?
love to go on the air.
You are on live. What do you have to say?
What you're talking about, are things better or worse?
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of things that are good, and there's a lot of things that are bad. I mean, things that are bad, I think, is the condition of our country and the debt, and what the taxes will need to do in the future in order to sustain the debt that we have.
Absolutely.
I mean, it seems like every year the expenses keep going up and up on everything. Inflation, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, look at healthcare. Look how many people are strapped now because of healthcare costs.
Now, let me throw this out. Isn't healthcare better now than it was before? So this is the conundrum I want to get into today. Okay,
Is it better than it was before? Not really, because there's a lot of people coming. I guess just some of the technology's better.
Yeah.
But on the same note, look at the pure bureaucracy we have going on in the healthcare industry as far as the drug companies and what the costs are for drugs and some of the stuff there. I mean, people are paying to survive and to live thousands of dollars for medication, and some of this medication that cost is for one pill.
Yeah, you could definitely argue, okay, that we've made great advancements in medicine, in medications, in all kinds of aspects of healthcare, yet the debt and the burden of healthcare is astronomical. So things are worse, yet things are better.
I mean, now a lot of people here, I mean, if you're watching this Obamacare, some of these people are going into the hospitals under the assumption of getting better, and yet their medical bills are so big that the industry winds up putting a lien on their house and takes their house away from them for the things they've worked for their whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know John would want to chime in on this because I know he's more of a naturalist in medicine and probably feels that we've strayed from true medicine.
Well, first off, first aid kits have gotten better because Survival Medical's there.
Well, of course.
We got to say that.
And better products that way, yeah, overall.
I think the healthcare industry by far has made some great leaps and bounds. I would argue, though, that humanity has pulled it down through our bureaucracy that's created in the system. A lot of times, folks point a finger at the hospital or the doctor because that's where the bill comes from, understandably. But really, behind the scenes, it's not them. It's what the government's forcing them to do that makes that bill the way it is. I've
had my wife used to work in the medical field, and they waste a lot of money.
Yes.
In the hospitals alone.
Yes. Between
Parties, conventions, all this other stuff. The drug companies are doing the same stuff. I mean, and then those expenses are passed on to the consumer.
Yep.
And I just think,
absolutely. There's a lot of waste there, but I think that where you eliminate that waste is if there was actually an opportunity for the customer or the patient to actually deal directly with the doctor in a free market society. That relationship and that would be totally different. The waste would be eliminated because there's a customer and there's a provider.
I'd love to see that.
As
Cash
opposed
only.
to a system where we've got the government with all of these regulations and the lobbying groups that allow these drug companies to do the things they can get away with. We need to get back to a system where a producer talks to a consumer, whether that's healthcare or agriculture or any other system.
Now, take this into account as well. Is what I was thinking is that as a prepper, as a preparedness advocate, we try to lean more on ourselves, and keep the burden off of, say, the healthcare system, off of other people, and so forth. It seems to me that the healthcare system is encouraging others to lean away from that, to step away from that, and to put your reliance on them, and rather than yourselves, and rather than being able to take care of yourself. If there's something wrong, let's go to the doctor, let's go to the hospital, rather than try and take care of that yourself.
Well, sure, and it lends itself well to the plan of government stepping in and trying to be daddy for everybody. That's why they want this healthcare industry. We're looking at socialized healthcare. That's what we're looking at.
Absolutely. I got a couple more calls here. Thank you, caller, for your call.
Hello?
I'm going to bring someone on here real quick here. All right. You've got a comment for us there, caller? What's your name? Oh, sorry. Let's try that again. All right. I'm sorry about that. I was a little too slow getting the phone lines there. So feel free to call back in, 801-254-5855. There we go, line 3. You had a comment for us. What's your name?
Paul.
Hello, Paul. Yes, what's your comment, sir?
Well, you hit a spot for me. I don't think things are better or worse. They're just changing.
Okay.
It's just, and it's the change. What kind of change do we want? Because if we want a free society with freedoms and a free market, or liberties, I should say, and a free market, then things are going to have to get really bad before they get any better.
Okay.
And that's why preparedness is such a essential thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for tying that in for us there. That's my intent of wanting to talk about this better or worse today, is we need to be aware of, what things are good or better than they used to be, and what things really are worse, and what may be hidden there, or that's something we need to uncover and realize and wake our minds up to what's really going on there and how to avoid the bad and focus more on the good.
Yeah,
Paul,
there
is
is
the caller
no
still there?
Go ahead.
There is no better or worse. It's just different.
Okay, just different. Okay.
Well, because what's good to you might be bad for me.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so there's no better or worse, just different.
Just different. Okay. John, you were going to say something?
I'd like to. I agree with the caller's premise. I would ask him if he could expound on that. Why do you think things are going to need to get worse before they get better?
Well, it's necessary because of the corruption in the government. I mean, our government is rife with corruption, and everybody knows it. I mean, look, Hillary should be in prison. People have gone to prison for less than what she's done.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's so corrupt and there's people in the pocket, she's not going to go to prison ever, I don't think.
Yeah, it's definitely concerning, and you definitely lose hope. And John, I see your question there is and I kind of agree with this caller. Is in order for things to change, that we have to need a reset of some sort. Is that what you're asking there, John?
Yes. Yes, and the
Absolutely.
systems we rely
on. I agree with what he's saying. I'm curious where it is in human nature that makes us not.
The systems we rely on are part of the government. And so if we break down the government, those systems are naturally going to break down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you very much for your call. We're coming up on a break here, and I got another call calling in.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you
Bye.
very much for your call. Sure appreciate it. All right, let's pick up. Caller on line 5. Go ahead and give us a call back after the break. We got another 30 seconds or so before our break. John,
well, Shane, I think it's interesting to note. What is it about human nature that we won't plant a garden until we're hungry? And that's what I was getting at with asking that question with the caller is, what is it about us? What do we need to change that inherently we won't do something until the hand's forced? Why is that as a society that's who we've become?
Right, until the very verge of the edge of the cliff of when we're about to fall, we don't attempt to catch ourselves until the very last minute, very last second. So I think you're absolutely right.
It's interesting. Well, everybody, you can go to survival-medical.com and help your family be prepared. We've got the only medical kits that are designed to be tougher than nature. Water, dust, and even time, you're going to be good with all of our kits.
Perfect.
Survival-medical.com.
All right, thanks for doing that exit for me there, John, and we'll see you guys on the other side of the break. Okay, we're going to jump right back into the conversation here. This is Shane of PreparedGuy.com here for Prepper Talk Radio. I've had a call ringing on line 3, and I'm going to go ahead and take this and get this started off, so I appreciate your patience here, as I'm the only one here in the studio. Here, caller line 3, what's your name?
This is Jason.
Hello, Jason.
Yeah. Hey, if I were to boil down all of what you're talking about, as far as, is it getting better or is it getting worse? The answer is clearly yes, it's both.
Okay.
But, the thing is what I've been noticing, and I think this probably can be applicable to a lot of areas. Our technology has exceeded and growing so rapidly and expanded, but what has not expanded has been our wisdom in reference to that technology, which I think is causing such a systemic problem throughout all of our systems.
Okay, and in wisdom, you don't necessarily just mean knowledge or smarts or whatever, but actual wisdom in the ability to use it properly, use knowledge properly, use learning properly. Is that what you're applying?
Exactly. I mean, one of the breakdowns and dysfunctions, which I personally believe is on purpose, has been the degradation of our education system, because when you look at it, what they really want to do is create excellent workers, but not excellent thinkers. If we apply the technology that we have and we use it judiciously and with some wisdom, most of these systems, most of this broken down stuff won't happen, and start going back to some of that aspects of it. That's one of the critical aspects, in my opinion. I mean, look at our medical advancements. They're fantastic. But at the same time, we look at the broken system of what's going on, and therein lies one of the biggest issues we've got, and the bureaucracies and people who simply want to use the technology for the sake of using technology.
Yeah, and I think you might be 100% right there in that if we're able to say, okay, is the education system better or is it worse? I think maybe we could very easily say it's worse than it used to be.
Well,
would I be correct in saying that?
I've coined a new phrase, and I like it because I coined it.
Okay.
But it's educated ignorance.
Okay, yep.
I mean, when you stop and think about it, you need certain math skills, you need to have a certain amount of communication skills and writing skills, and the emphasis is on those things, but to really critically think things through, to really understand. But it's all geared around keeping people and keeping kids into understanding the dynamics of a society so that they are better citizens, better in the society. But that's it.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Absolutely great points.
Very great.
Yeah, thanks for calling in, Jason. I've got
Bye.
phones are ringing off the hook here. I'm going to go ahead and pick up another call here.
You've got a great point there, Shane. If I could just chime in on that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got the foxes educating the chickens, and that's exactly systemic. But there's a quote about this that I think is great that I like to reference. It was Mark Peterson in April 1950 said, "No one is going to risk very much to save an instrument which he does not understand." And I think that's exactly the systemic that we're dealing with right now. So we've got a populace that doesn't understand what liberty is. Freedom's something on a T-shirt with an eagle on it from the truck stop. People don't understand what it is.
You're absolutely right. And at that point, you could probably also say this is definitely worse than it used to be. Now, I brought on a caller on line 5, and you've just been listening. Did you have something you'd like to add to our discussion?
Are you referring to me?
Yes, I'm referring to you. Go ahead. What's your name?
All right. Hi. This is Falcon. I'm
Yes,
agreeing with Jason and the previous caller before Jason that what they're doing, I think, is they're breaking the premise of the show. Are things getting better or worse? They're breaking the either or mentality.
Okay.
Jason is correct, and the other caller is correct. Some things are just different, and some things are getting better, and some things are getting worse. So we have it all going in these different directions. But the things that are getting worse, some things are getting so worse that they could be highly destructive and detrimental even to a permanency. Some damage that we take on is not repairable, and that's the problem with damage. And so Now, when you talk about wisdom, that's an interesting point, because one person may consider something to be wisdom and another person may not. Is there a true wisdom? Is there a one truth? And how do you get one to adhere to the truth? Because to become wise, in my opinion, to become wise and to adhere to the truth, one must, by and large, subdue the self. You have to be willing to see your ugly self. How often do we see everyone ranting and raving for their own rights, but very negligent when it comes to the rights of other people?
Then you're absolutely right. So what you're saying is, Falcon, is that the line is blurred. You can't really tell, okay, what's right or what's wrong or what's better or what's worse. Is that what you're hinting at?
I would agree that when it comes to people that do not truly have wisdom, the lines are very blurred, and they just basically make up their morality as they go. It becomes selective. But I'm not saying that I'm that way. And of course I'm obviously wagging my own tail and I'm biased, but I believe that some people, and I think myself, but some people can actually see the difference between right and wrong. For example, if you have the opportunity to take unfair advantage and do it, that's because you don't see the larger picture, including the spirituality. But if you have the opportunity to take unfair advantage but refuse to do it, then you're onto something, because you see the material world as just stuff. If you're caught up in it, then you become diabolical in many ways, because your need for it your appetite for it needs to be satiated. See, that's the problem with attachment to the world. I don't mean to be preachy or anything, but this be in the world but not of it. Jesus taught this, and other wise people throughout the world taught this. This attachment to the material world is a very terrible thing if it can influence you. If you can just go through it and observe it, doesn't mean you can't have something, but if you can just go through it as an observer, it's going to go by quickly, and you'll be much better off for it.
No, you bring up some very deep and ponderous comments that I am sitting here just pondering, trying to have some sort of kind of retort to, but I love those kind of comments. It really makes me think, and like you say, I think we've lost a lot of that ability to think for ourselves, and we're allowing others to think for us.
I really enjoy your show, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I sure appreciate that. Thanks for calling in, Falcon.
Bye for now.
Thank you. John, did you have any comments to that, what he was saying?
Well, I definitely see where everybody's going with that. It's progression, and whatever direction that is undetermined. And I think another way to look at that is, are things getting better? Are things getting worse? Well, in society, maybe the greater society is, but the more we recognize that, the better we can make things in our own circles. So I think it goes back to the nature of, it's not really either or, because both are happening simultaneously. And I think that's the point. I mean, as we see these things, when we talk about preparedness especially, as we see things maybe declining societally, we make the choice as preppers to alter that on an individual or family or community scale. That's the whole point of preparedness.
Great point.
And so it's, it lends itself to that question of, well, both, like the other caller said, both are happening simultaneously. Things are getting better and things are getting worse. And it's a matter of choice, right? It's our choice. The first thing is to recognize that there's a problem, and then the choice has to be made. Am I going to be a victim, or am I going to be someone that does something about it? And if you're someone who does something about it, you can go to the Riverdale, Utah Sam's Club right now and pick up Survival Medical products and help your family be more prepared.
Yes, my apologies. I did not lead in with Survival Medical here off the break. We had just the phones ringing off the hook, and I feel an obligation to pick up the phone and let you guys have your say. And I still missed a few calls, so I apologize. So it's just me in here trying to make things happen. So feel free to call back in with your comments. They've been fantastic comments this morning so far. And I love this kind of discussion because I don't have all the answers, and I'm reaching out there to you guys. And I'm sure glad that John's on today. He has just a fantastic view of where we are and where we're going. And I really lean on John for a lot of things. We text, message each other off the show, and I just really appreciate him being here with me and his perspective. It's very enlightening. And one of our callers is back, so I'm going to pick up line 3 here. Yes, what's your name?
Andre.
Yes, Andre, what comment did you have for us?
Well, this is a question for all citizens in America.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's really happening out there right now?
Mm-hmm. That's a valid question.
And it's like this is all happening under Hillary Clinton and cronies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely very confusing, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to pose this question, and to get us all to think. What is better and what is worse? Did you have any particular examples of what you're thinking about, better or worse? I mean, what's standing out in your life right now that makes you think, oh, things are better this way, but they're definitely worse this way? Anything in particular?
That our Bill of Rights and Constitution be put in place the way veterans fought for it. That's what's happening,
Absolutely.
And we're all getting pissed off that they're not in place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so whatever's happening right now, which Donald keeps saying, Hillary is the reason why this is happening. And why people vote for her, they can't see that. It's like, it's a damage effect already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't want to get too much into politics. I leave that to Paul and some of the other shows here. We want to talk about things, what we can do, and just be aware. And of course, one thing we can do is go out and vote and make the right choice. And that's going to be that's a tough choice for me. Actually, let me retract that. I know exactly what I'm going to do for this election. But do you? Here's the question I've been thinking of. Is now obviously Hillary for me is obviously not the right choice. But do you take the time to even think about, well, should I consider voting for Hillary, or is that just like what's happened to Glenn Beck, his statement that he made? And exactly what he was trying to get at is that, okay, I'm going to at least consider. I'm going to run it through in my mind. I'm going to take the time to think about it. And so essentially that's what I'm trying to reach out to you all and get your input on what we're talking about today, better or worse. What is better or what is worse?
Oh, yeah, I think it's worse because look at her whole agenda. It's all communist. It's not even, our Bill of Rights ain't even in place.
Yeah.
She's definitely not the right choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for calling. Sure, I appreciate it.
And then that one, can you believe Hillary Clinton supports the Mormons and all their lost children to keep going on and on?
Not sure what to say about that, but thank you very much for your call. What I wanted to, I guess, get into here is the reason I brought this up is I was out walking on a Sunday morning and passed by an individual, or an individual passed by my house and saw the PrepperCon 4Runner out there, and we started up a conversation. And he really had no idea what a prepper was, or is, or why anyone would want to prepare. And I'm afraid that this is much too commonplace in our world right now. His stance was, well, I think things are a lot better now than they used to be. And I kind of stepped back and for a second and looking back at myself and the world and realize, okay, I understand what you're saying. People are more tolerant. People are better to animals. There are groups out there that are taking better care of animals, of people's rights, and so forth. Yet, we still, especially preppers, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, John, we can tend to have a bit of a negative mindset.
Well, I think I can see where you're coming from there. I think that's more a matter of perception. And to your point of tolerance, I would argue that's not a good thing.
Okay, perfect.
Andrew Taft Gibson said that tolerance was the doctrine of evil. And I believe that to be absolutely true. And that doesn't mean acceptance. Acceptance and tolerance, I believe, are two different things. Mm-hmm. I hope that doesn't get confused as I say that. Being accepting and being loving and being kind is totally separate from being tolerant. Tolerance is accepting unright or non-liberty provoking behavior. If we don't stand up for what's right, we're being tolerant.
Right, we're tolerating it. We're not doing anything about it.
That's right, and I think preppers mistakenly get the for instance, the word doomsday is commonly thrown in there with prepper. I'm not a prepper because of some negative attitude. I'm a prepper because of a positive attitude.
Absolutely.
Again, it comes back to that, like we said earlier. First is recognizing the problem. Second is making the choice to do something about it. And once I've made that choice to do something about it, I feel much better. I'm not that concerned with what's going on in the election right now because I understand. I see it from a bigger point of view. There's an illusion of choice out there. Which amendment, which rights would you like to have taken away first? That's the election that we're choosing to be a part of.
Yep.
And then but I've made the choice to prepare my family and to work to prepare my community. So I don't have to worry about the doom and gloom that maybe other people might have in their perspective. I don't need to feel that way. I'm up here hanging out in my bunker in Idaho, eating zucchini and tomatoes from my garden still, about to butcher a steer, and life's good up here.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit more in that. I guess first of all, tolerance and acceptance are two different, kind of two different things. But and those I think are increasing. Maybe you call that better, sure, or whatever. Call it worse, call it better, call it different. But are peace and love increasing in the world? Is that getting better, or is it getting worse? But I also wanted to address.
The religion of peace is growing.
What was that? Sorry.
The religion of peace is growing.
Okay, there you go. The religion of peace. Okay, we'll stay away from that for now. But I also wanted to talk about. You mentioned growing a garden. We look at our system of grocery stores, of food production, and it has all become so convenient for us. We just go to the grocery store and get what we need. Is that better or is that worse? Is it worse that we're not producing our own food? Or is it better that we are able to lead our lives and do really whatever we want and not have to worry about working in the garden? Or is that a bad thing that we're not working in the garden? Is it worse that way?
I heard something the other day along those lines, Shane, that I think I kind of was aware of. There's the break.
Yeah, there's our break. We'll come back to this right after the break. And, of course, our show is brought to you by Survival Medical. Head out to Riverton Sam's Club. Check them out. Check out the products. Put them in your hands and check them out. That's really the best way to do it. And we'll see you guys on the other side of the break here. And welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio here on AM 630 here in Salt Lake City, Utah. And we are talking today about things that are better and things that are worse. Or are they worse and are they better? So that's the big question for me is are things better or are they worse? And we've got John with Survival Medical on with us. That's our guest today. So happy to have you on, John. And keep in mind that Survival Medical will be in the Sam's Club along the Wasatch Front really through the end of the year. Right now you're through Sunday, you say, at the Riverdale?
We're at the Riverdale store at 4949 South, 900 West through Sunday. You can also always go to our website, survival-medical.com. Before we went out on the break there, Shane, you had brought up something interesting about food production. I heard something the other day that I'm not certain of the statistics, but I found very interesting. So the person I was listening to on the radio as I was driving said that it used 2 generations ago, 70% of America grew a portion of their food. Mm-hmm. They didn't define what that portion was, but they said 2 generations ago, 70% of Americans grew a portion of their food. Now it's under 10%.
I would think it's even lower than that, depending on, I guess, where you're living. But yeah, absolutely right. I've heard those statistics as well. And
it's crazy how distant we became. And from a preparedness standpoint, I think we should really be alarmed with that. That's a very basic human need to know how to provide for yourself. And by provide for yourself, I don't mean go to the grocery store. I mean doing the basic human functions of starting a fire, gathering water, and growing food.
Yeah, providing for yourself nowadays has basically turned into getting a job and falling in line with the system, right? And not learning how to garden because, we don't have time for that. But I believe that I'm seeing a resurgence, of getting back to these old skills, and call them old skills. They were around for thousands of years, and what we do now is not the norm. Our situation now of being able to walk down to the grocery store and buy anything off the shelf is not the norm if we look back over in the entire history.
Well, I think that, for different reasons over the last 4 or 5 decades, we've seen a small resurgence in that, Shane. You know, in the 70s and 80s, you saw this back to the land movement for different reasons. In the 90s, maybe there was more of it because of Y2K scares. Nowadays, preparedness has become, maybe that's a portion of it. But I think one common thread throughout all of that was recognizing that there was a problem, recognizing that there was a disconnect. That's the baseline that has to happen first. And then that choice is made of, I'm going to act, I'm going to do something, I'm not going to be a victim.
Perfect.
And to me, the real question then becomes, what on earth has to be done? Because for us, it's obvious, right? Here we are, K-Talk listeners, we're the choir preaching to each other, right? What do we do to help our neighbors? Because we have to be a prepared community. Prepared Shane, prepared John. It doesn't work at the end of the day. We need a prepared community. And that's one of my questions here, along the same subject line, is what do we do as a community? I mean, you can't run up to your neighbor's house, knock on the door, and say, hey, the sky's falling, where's your food storage? That's not going to work out well. What can we do as a community to raise awareness of that problem? Because once that problem is recognized and understood, you know, most logical thinking humans are going to choose to do something about it.
Yeah, let's dig into that. But I brought on a caller on line 3. There, caller, what's your name?
Hey, this is Jason again.
Oh, hey, Jason.
You guys talked about something that kind of triggered an aspect that I've been hearing about that's kind of frightening, and it stems around that whole Agenda 21 thing and how they're really wanting people to move into the cities so that they can become dependent on that. So you can't grow your own food, and that way, you know, they have a higher degree of control. And they said something else that actually really bothered me. And the more I think about it, the more I'm realizing that there's something to this. Growing up, all of our highways, didn't matter what it was in the city, they didn't have these center blocks in between the lanes. In other words, the concrete blocks. But if you think about it, that creates a beautiful choke point that if they really want to impose a martial law scenario and you're trying to get out of town, guess what? You're going to be funneled right through them in that spot, and you can't turn around.
I'm not surprised in your way of thinking here, Jason. And I feel that all the time. I'm driving down the freeway stuck in traffic, and I've got walls on both sides of me. And like, okay, great. You know, what am I going to do if I get stuck in traffic here? You know, I'm gonna go on foot. But
exactly. And did you grow up seeing those? That's only been the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just really putting us into trying to make us fit into a mold more than anything. You know, to control us, and you know that's of course a topic for a whole another day. But
a whole other show.
Yeah.
As the interrelationship, though, if you stop and think about it, you look at how many apartment complexes are going into the Salt Lake Valley. They're getting a kickback on that as far as a reduced cost, so they can get people into a smaller place. If you have your own house, guess what? You can at least grow a somewhat of a patch of a garden in your yard. You can tear up the entire yard. But the more people go into this consolidated living under the guise of overpopulation, what you've got then is somebody else dictating how and in what way you're able to live.
Absolutely.
Jason, you got some awesome points there. You got me thinking, because I travel a lot as well, and you're starting to see those blocks out in the middle of nowhere on the interstates. You see those concrete, and so that is interesting. But to your point about, well, if you have a house, at least you can grow a garden, I'd argue that's not really even true. I mean, we can see cases around the country where you've got to have permission slip from almighty daddy government to grow a garden in your own yard. There's cases where people have been fined and everything else for putting a garden in their own yard. I mean, it is. There's
as well as the HOVs. As well as the HOAs. And those, I'm beginning to see how incredibly nefarious, if not evil, the HOAs are, and it amazes me. Why would I want to buy property and pay my neighbors to dictate how I live?
Yep.
It's insanity.
It is. And so that's, I think, perfect lead into, okay, is this better, an example of a better situation or a worse situation? And I think, you know, us as preppers, we think, okay, things are getting worse, we're losing our freedoms and so forth, but what can we look out there and say that this is actually better? You know, what technological advancements have we made that are makes life better for us? Like, for example, solar power, for example. How freaking awesome is that we can live off-grid and create our own power and live with the accoutrements and all the nice things that technology gives us, but still live off grid and live away from this busy Wasatch Front. That's my goal. I mean, anyway, am I off my rocker there?
I don't think you're off your rocker at all. I mean, and I think those are systemic of recognizing that problem. Innovators recognize those problems that we've been discussing, and then we create solutions to those problems to counteract them. Because you can't stop them, they're inevitable, and so the answer then is, well, how do we change the direction it takes us? And that's where innovation comes in. I mean, you can make I can make a laundry list. I'm sure you can too. I mean, anybody that goes to PrepperCon, 90% of those booths in there are innovative solutions to that problem. Whether it's solar power, or whether it's Vital Domes tents or Survival Medical, there's solutions being created.
What scares me most, gentlemen, is not the electricity. Okay, having the electricity and being dependent upon the grid, yeah, it's wonderful, it's nice, I'd prefer not. They can shut it down, I'm still going to be alive, period. What scares the living daylights out of me is that the water feed supply I am absolutely dependent upon in this city. That is the part that I'm going, wait a second here. This is getting a little hinky, and it seems so innocuous because I grew up with the benefit and the beautiful blessing of having water piped in since I was born.
Absolutely.
But when you look at the society and our systems, we're all seeing the systems are broken. No matter what your solution might be on fixing the system, the reality of it is it's breaking. If it breaks down and degrades, and there's a tipping point that happens, then all of a sudden those systems break down, and you are so incredibly dependent upon an outside source, you're in a bad situation, really bad.
Absolutely, and they're so fragile compared to what they used to be. We've built that fragility in by everything working off the internet. Everything is reliant, like you say, on electricity to get our water. So we can say, at least I think I can say that things being more fragile is a worse condition. It's not a better condition. Would we be living better if we had candles and we had a well and had our own well and had a hand pump? Is that considered a better way of life?
Well, but that's considered, but that goes into the question of quality of lifestyle. Functionality, you're there. And if it breaks down too much, be grateful for the candle and the hand pump. So the question is how do you instill and create the independence with the interdependency on your community and maintain a lifestyle that is supportive of the way you want to live. When it comes down to it, we can all go in the bare basics. All right. The question is we're raising the standard on preparedness a lot higher than we have ever done in our life, ever. So even in a preparedness situation, you are in a far, far greater, better position as a prepper than they were 100 years ago.
True. I see that. Absolutely.
So, you've raised the standard just by the very nature of your show and the very nature of conscientious people saying, okay, well, if something did go wrong, how would I prepare for it? So your standard of living in that reference point is spot on. But at the same time, if it degrades too much, you're still fine. I mean, what? You got candles and a hand pump. Great. Guess what? We can learn how to rethink again.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And like one of our good friends, Cache Valley Prepper, he really focuses on the concept of anti-fragility, of being anti-fragile, rather than just being resilient or being self-reliant. It's another step of above that, and that comes to one of our previous shows of your mentality, of your mindset. Do you and one thing I always reach back towards is, in order to prepare for the future, because I think I see what's coming, I think you guys see what's coming. In order to prepare for the future, we have to look toward the past. And so that's where I kind of make my basis of deciding, okay, is this truly better or is it truly worse? So I have that bit, kind of a standard for myself. And,
Shane, yeah. I think, let me chime in here, because Jason brought up some awesome points that those problems that you just identified, Jason, I think they're localized. We can vote with our feet. That's from the very formation of the American Republic. It was set up that way. It was set up where we can vote with our feet. If they didn't like the laws in New Hampshire, you can move to Connecticut. And there's a thing called the American Redoubt movement that I hope that all of these great K-Talk listeners are aware of.
The American what?
Redoubt.
Turn my phone.
The American Redoubt movement. The American Redoubt movement was an idea birthed by James Wesley Rawls of survivalblog.com. And he encouraged us to move as a patriot group to a certain region of Idaho and Montana, Wyoming, eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, and so that we can have that voting power, so that we can build that community, so that all of those problems that you're identifying are being solved by bringing like-minded people together. And so I would encourage us to say, don't have a mentality of, hey, here I am. We're not trees. We can get up and we can lead. We can vote with our feet. The American Redoubt movement is big. I meet people up here in Idaho all the time. I'm a redouter. I'm not from here. I moved here because of the American Redoubt. There are many other patriots moving here for the same reason. We can create that community that you're talking about. We can solve those problems. We don't have to vote and agree with Agenda 21 when we bring enough patriots to the same community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. Jason, you had one final comment?
Yeah, one final comment, and this really kind of concerns me also. We're actually moving into a form of feudalism under the guise of socialism. When you look at the BLM, and I really like what those guys do as far as conservation of animals and things like that. But what happens is we're seeking permission from the state to be able to harvest our food from that position. And what it is it's a violation of the king's forest.
That's right.
And it's a very scary thought.
Great point. Thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate your comments.
Day.
And thanks for everybody for listening today and your great comments. This is exactly what I was hoping for, is to get your input on whether things are better or they're worse. And whether they are or not, they are different. And we need to make adjustments in our life to it. So do something to be more prepared. Do something every day. Get more physically fit. Get more of the supplies you need. And keep a positive mental attitude. Thank you, John, for joining us. Thanks to Survival Medical for supporting us here at Prepper Talk Radio. And we will see you all next week.